Recently I made a video on the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion and talking about my first impressions so far. Funny enough, someone left a comment that I didn't see coming, comparing this device with the OnePlus 9. Of course, I do want to do an update video on the OnePlus 9 because it now runs Android 13. But this comparison I didn't see coming until I looked into it. Either way, let's compare the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion and the OnePlus 9. So as stated, at the beginning I was confused about why someone would want to compare the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion versus the OnePlus 9. But when I looked into it, a 6.55 inch display, a 6.55 inch display, Snapdragon 888 Plus, Snapdragon 888, UFS 3.1 for both of them, and then a POLED versus an AMOLED display, 144Hz versus 120Hz, and both of them come with about the same memory specifications as well. So let's talk about the differences between the two. Now of course, in terms of software experience it is quite different. Motorola has a really clean looking software experience that I don't necessarily agree to with some certain things, like of course as stated the notification settings and so on. It doesn't work that well. But the OnePlus 9 of course comes with their own software on top of Android. OnePlus 9 has a really nice alert slider, but the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion has a feature that I really want every single phone to have. Check it, flash turns on. So in terms of software experience there is quite a difference, and this is something that is really hard to compare. I can like a certain style of software that someone else will not like. One good example is of course One UI. You either like it or you don't. There isn't really an in-between. But when it comes to software experience, I will say that both of these work really well. Software experience is smooth and I really don't have any problems with lags, for instance. Software experience for both of these devices is fine from day-to-day life experience. If I would say which one I prefer at the end, it would be the OnePlus 9. This is simply because of those large notification settings that don't look good and are a clutter for me. I have to keep swiping from left to right to get to where I want to be. It makes no sense, and as well as closing all apps, that doesn't work as well on the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion. You either have to manually swipe every single one up, or you have to go to the left of the screen all the way, and if you have like 20 apps open, it's kind of a hassle. With the OnePlus 9 those problems aren't there. But as stated, the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion does have some really nice features that some people might like over what OnePlus has to offer. Because OnePlus is very basic in software experience, where with Motorola you do get those really nice, smart, quick features. As stated, the flash of course, and holding it down and swiping it like that, it allows the camera to go on, do it again, and it switches the camera. So in software experience for me, while I prefer the OnePlus 9, it really depends a little bit on the user case. If you aren't bothered about the applications closing them, or aren't bothered about the larger icons for your Wi-Fi and so on, then really the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion has excellent software and good software support as well, running on of course Android 13, where the OnePlus 9 also now runs on Android 13. Support, it really depends a little bit on which one will last longer. Based on release, I would say that the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion will have longer support for the software, but it's always hard to say because companies just keep changing their policies. So it really depends. Then let's talk about the camera. The Motorola Edge 30 Fusion comes with a 50 megapixel main sensor compared to a 48 megapixel main sensor on the OnePlus 9. However, there is a difference here. The OnePlus 9 does have a larger sensor compared to the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion. And then we have the second lens. With the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion you get a 13 megapixel ultra wide versus a 15 megapixel ultra wide on the OnePlus 9. It's not even close when it comes to that ultra wide, I think, in comparison, even though I think that the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion does do a decent job with that ultra wide. The OnePlus 9 is clearly the winner here, and no, that isn't just because of the resolution itself. And yes, if you're wondering, both of them have a 2 megapixel sensor next to it. However, With the OnePlus 9, it's for monochrome. It really doesn't tell that much, but either way, that's a feature that you have on, of course, the OnePlus 9. When it comes to the camera result, I would say both of them are very capable. Both can take great shots. However, there is a difference again in terms of approach, and that's something that only you can judge for yourself. So I'm just gonna showcase images where you can judge for yourself which one you prefer at the end. When it comes to low light, however, I will say that the OnePlus 9 does beat the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion. It has better processing and the images just simply look better for me. The Motorola Edge 30 Fusion in low light still is somewhat of a hit and miss depending on the situation. Don't get me wrong, it can take some stellar shots, but sometimes it loves to over sharpen things, and that's a little bit of a downside on the low light situation with the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion. Yes, it is mostly when it's really tough to get that shot, but still it's a shame to see that over sharpening going on with the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion. Now for both the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion and the OnePlus 9, it's quite comparable in battery as well. The Motorola Edge 30 Fusion has a 4400 mAh battery, where the OnePlus 9 has a 4500 mAh battery. However, 68 watt charging on the Motorola, 65 watt charging on the OnePlus 9. Not a big difference, but a slight difference here in terms of charging and of course charging speeds, but not something that you will notice. In terms of battery life, again they are very comparable. I think Motorola often does a really good job with battery life compared to the battery size that you're getting, and this is not a difference when it comes to the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion. The problem that you have with the OnePlus 9 that this one is harder to get new, meaning that the battery inside has already degraded somewhat. So it might be that battery life isn't as good as it used to be, and I will say that in day-to-day life it doesn't really do a big difference. And I will have to say in day-to-day life, honestly, either of these will make it till the end of the day, but you do have the chance that the battery degradation is more on the OnePlus 9. Now in terms of display, I will have to say that it is really hard to pick between these two. I will say that yes, the Motorola looks a little bit smoother, but really not that much, and it isn't really noticeable. It's just in some little cases where you can see you have just a little bit more refresh rate, but honestly, you're not gonna really notice that. In terms of brightness, both of them get really bright and have good colors as well. Again, here I wouldn't say that one does necessarily better than the other, and it isn't going to blow you away comparing these two in terms of display. Again, it is a little bit about calibration and of course your preference here as well. So it really depends, but both of these have good displays. The difference, however, is that the OnePlus 9 does have a flat display, where on, of course, the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion you have a curved display. This also means that the frame itself, while holding it, is a little bit thinner. But then again, I will still give it to the Motorola in terms of just feel in the hand, simply because of the texture on the back, where on the OnePlus 9 some people like it, some people don't, but overall when it comes to holding it, it just doesn't feel as nice because of the texture on the back of the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion. However, if the OnePlus 9 had that same texture, I definitely prefer the feel of the OnePlus 9. So at the end, who wins, the Motorola or the OnePlus 9? Honestly, it's really hard to pick between these two, because both of them offer a lot. And I think while the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion has probably longer software support, the OnePlus 9 does have good software in day-to-day life experience. Man, this is a real hard pick between these two, and it comes down to what your preference is. At the end, I think whether you go for the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion or the OnePlus 9, it really depends on your preference, and I hope this video helped out by showcasing the differences and more showing you what could be the differences that matter to you and how they perform in that task. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video on the Motorola Edge 30 Fusion versus the OnePlus 9, again, which I didn't see coming. Anyway, have a good one and talk to you guys in the next.